Okay, so this workshop is about, or this webinar is about how to handle work pressure. And I want to actually plunge in. I want to get straight to the tips because obviously, those of you who are here on this webinar, and you're not here to understand what Bodhi does. We normally take you through an introduction just to let you know. Sometimes the message is as important as the messenger. That's just to tell you who the messenger is. But let's get to the point. Okay. Yes, Neha, I see your message. Somebody from our team will put up the link soon. Okay. So straight to the tips. First important tip which I have here is about stop social loafing. These are the things which you can do to handle work pressure, because one of the things I've noticed among people who I train, coach, work with in organizations, there's a lot of social loafing which happens. What does social loafing mean? There are a lot of people who work in a system, organization, company, team, and so on. And it's important that you are part of it and you contribute to it, because if you don't, what ends up happening is that there's a lot of load which eventually gets spread. You might think it's not going to come to you, but eventually it does come to you. So, for example, this lady here is sitting down and actually relaxing, reclining and relaxing while the others are doing the work. There are a lot of people in companies like this. You ask yourself, if you are one of them, are you somebody who's finishing work, what is really the bare essential, and after that sitting back and relaxing? If that's the case, eventually the pressure is going to get to you. So it's a good idea for you to not social loaf. It's a great way for you to be more effective in your job, because this tip is really about effectiveness rather than handling pressure. Because one of the reasons why pressure builds is because people are social loafing. And it's the social loafers to whom the pressure actually gets to in the end, because each time you loaf, you actually become a little, very slightly incompetent in some area, because you're wasting useful time which should be otherwise invested in practice. Okay, by the way, this is not a suggestion that you don't take a coffee break, don't take a tea break, like what happens in that movie Pursuit of Happiness. Will Smith avoids taking breaks because he can get more time to work. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is that if you're not even working when you're supposed to work, then that's something which you should probably worry about. Second tip, which is actually stop. I didn't want to put that word loafing that twice, but it's actually called cyber loafing. Cyber loafing means there are a lot of people sitting behind a screen, and I don't know how many of you fall in this category. This is particularly true of people in companies where the screen is not visible to others. Okay, and you might have managers who are sitting in cabins where you don't know exactly what's happening on the screen. And if you look closely, you see what this woman is doing. She's on Facebook, and she's at her work desk, but she's on Facebook. This is what's called a cyber loafing. Okay, and it's not just Facebook, it's Facebook, LinkedIn. You don't even have to be on your screen nowadays, it's more on your phone. If you're spending 2 hours in your day checking WhatsApp messages, updating your status on Facebook, or checking LinkedIn, or checking who's liked something which you put up and so on, that eventually is going to get to you. So what I'm getting at is there is a need to make a distinction between your work time and making sure that you work during work time, and making sure you're not uh, social loafing or cyber loafing. Okay. uh, this is another phenomenon closely related to that. LBDN. Any of you happen to know what LBDN is? Deepak, if you're unable to hear me, it could be because of your audio system. So let me just put that up there, because if Deepak can't hear me, he probably also can't hear what I'm saying. Okay, so check your audio, those of you who can't hear me, because we always have a person from Bodhi who's sitting right in front of me, and he's able to hear me in a completely different independent system and network. So it's a good indicator of whether our volume is going across. Yes, anybody here knows what LBDN is? You can put it up on the chat screen. Let's just check. Wow, thank you very much for that. I can't see your name. Your name still says waiting for name. But LBTN is Vandita. Thanks, Vandita. So LBTN is actually looking busy doing nothing. Now, if you just look at this shot, it seems like all these people are busy. You know, one guy's on the phone, one guy's having a conversation. At least three of them look super busy, except this guy who's chatting with this woman. So this is another phenomenon which happens in office, where there are a lot of people who are actually looking busy doing nothing. And what this does is people complain of work pressure. And the reason I'm emphasizing this through social loafing, through cyber loafing, through this is because ever so often when I work with people in one-on-one sessions or when I coach people, I realize that a big amount of their time at work is spent not doing work, is spent on other things, on personal matters, on personal calls. Okay, the phenomenon of looking busy doing nothing, and these people look super busy. These are also the kind of people who might actually come to work even on an off Saturday, and it makes it look like they're working really hard. Yes, so that's something for you to keep in mind. If you're just finish your work and you will look busy enough. There's no need to look more busy than that or less busy than that. Okay, next, stop this whole phenomenon of what's called creative distraction. This is an extension of looking busy doing nothing. Just when your boss passes by, um, or when somebody's looking at or coming to check on you, like this guy looks super busy. He looks like he's really doing some work. For all you know, he's listening to music or he's doing something of that sort. So this my message to you is that I'm starting off with a number of things not to do so that we can get to the things which you should actually be doing in order to handle work pressure well. So stop creative distraction, and I call it creative because it requires a lot of creativity for people to look busy in office but actually not do any work. All right, especially happens when you're sitting in front of a computer screen. Sometimes I also see people walking around, and but there's one of our clients who I don't want to name. You will be amazed at how busy that office is. It's a very small company. They have only about 80 people and about 40 people in each floor. And each of these that office is buzzing when their big boss is sitting there. But when he's not in town, when he's in the US, it seems like there's a gala time going on. And the last of these tips, which I want to share with you, stop this whole phenomenon of what's called as creative distraction. This is another dimension of it, which is, I also see this in some companies. People wait for the boss or the manager to leave. They work really hard till the manager's also in office, and the moment he leaves, about three-fourths of the office vanishes. Well, not the moment he leaves, but maybe 5 minutes later. Okay, so my basic message to you so far, or if I can club all this into one idea, it is in the interest of handling work pressure, work while you're at work, finish what you have to do. I've never been a fan of being staying late in office, working beyond. One of the things that Abdul Kalam said is leave the moment your office timing is over. There's no need to work late. If you're working late, it just means you're ineffective, you're probably not using your time well, you're probably not working smart, and those are some of the things which I want to talk about later. But to start with, if you can just make up your mind to be, and I see this in my own organization, the people who work best, we had somebody who actually quit quite recently, but I've noticed that he used to be one of the big guys who would stay in office till 7:30, 8 o'clock. But when it comes to efficiency, he was also one of the least efficient people. So my suggestion to you is be ready to come into office on time and leave on time. I don't think there's any need to work later than that. And I've noticed this among the most productive people, they're not working late. Okay? Probably because they're not cyber loafing, they're not social loafing, they're not involved in any kind of creative distraction. Okay? Deepak, it's unfortunate that you still can't hear me. Um, I hope you can see the screen, but the others can hear me. So I think you should check your speaker. Okay, let's move in to the actual tips. Some of you must have read this book by Brian Tracy called Eat That Frog. This is a great way for you to handle work pressure because every now and then I ask people about work pressure, and I want you to just spend a minute looking at this frog and thinking about what do you think this means. Okay, so since you must have thought about it, this is I mean, by the way, this first of all, let me tell you, this is not literal. I'm not asking you to eat that frog, especially that frog which looks evil. What this means is this is an idea from this book called Eat That Frog. It's about procrastination. It's about stopping procrastination. And one of the reasons why people have a lot of pressure at work is because there are one or two critical incidents every day which they would have loved to avoid, but you just can't avoid because work has to get done. And Eat That Frog is a concept which says start by doing those most critical things, start by doing those things which you most dread, start by doing those things which you feel are most difficult. Okay, and start by doing those things which might not be the easiest things or the most fun things, but you just have to do them anyway. Now this is a wonderful phenomenon because what this does is this actually frees up your mind and space for the rest of the day. Okay, just to give you an example, if you come to office and there are two things which you know are going to be difficult because there's this very difficult subordinate whose performance appraisal you have, okay, and there's another vendor negotiation and you're trying to get the best rates for that. Okay, these are the two things which you dread. Apart from that, there are other things like you have to send some emails, you have to um, format some document and send it out, and you have to probably also go and make a visit to a particular site to see something. You have a few more things on your list. It would do you good to come to office and finish that performance appraisal and finish that vendor negotiation, because these are the two things which are most difficult, and once these are done, all the other things fall into place. And also what this does is when you finish these two tough tasks, it allows you to do the other things with ease. It's the same reason why some people on Friday evening they feel relaxed because the weekend's about to begin. There are good times ahead. And exactly like that, when you come to office in the morning and finish the two most dreadful tasks, and it says eat that frog, you can probably rephrase this as eat those frogs. So when you finish this, it reminds you of good times ahead because the rest of the day is going to be easy. Okay, in fact, Eat That Frog is not just a daily phenomenon, it could also be a weekly phenomenon. Come to office on Monday morning, you can perhaps use the Monday to finish the toughest task for that week. When you do this, it takes the pressure off your chest and you actually enjoy the rest of the week, because and you can follow this each day of the week. Okay, you can follow this for the whole month. Maybe the first week of the month, finish the toughest task for that month, and the rest of the uh, that month, week, day will go easy. Okay, let me move on. If you have any questions, please put them up on the chat screen. I'm looking at the screen very closely. Okay, next I can see one or two of you leaving. It's unfortunate that you can't hear us. I'm sorry, I'm going to just take 20 seconds to put this message up again. Okay, thanks. The next point that I'd like to make is what's in your top three? One of the things that Warren Buffett said, he said that the most effective people, or let's say the more effective people, they have shorter to-do lists every day. Because when you have a to-do list with 15, 20 items on the list, I can't imagine that each of those items is equally important. I think it's a good idea for you to start your day. Like we are still at 11 o'clock, it's still 11:20, still not too late for you to start. Start by looking at what are the most critical things that you can do on a particular day. So, and identify three of them. By the way, this is not to mention identify any three things for that day. No, this is in a way, it's a way for you to put the eat that frog philosophy to work. If you come to office in the morning, identify the three most critical things for you to do that day. Okay, this need not be in terms of difficulty level or how easy it is, but it could be in terms of criticality. If you look at your job description, if you look at your KRAs and KPIs, what are the three things if you did that day would be a success? Even if you just finished those three things and left for the day, you would feel like you achieved something for that day. Identify those three things and write them down. And in fact, I'm going to give you a minute just now. Okay, I'm going to give you exactly a minute. And those of you who've been in any of my workshops, you know that I follow things very closely when it comes to timing. I'm going to give you exactly 1 minute. I want you to write down the three most critical things for today, which you can get accomplished, and if you do, your day would be a success. Okay, I'll give you exactly 1 minute. I want you to write these three things down, and then I'm going to continue. Deepak Kotak, you say that you're going to reconnect. Yes, Deepak, that's a good idea. I'm glad you're doing that. Sivatanu, the session has started. We're in the middle of an exercise. Okay. Okay, you have 20 seconds left. All right, that's good. Thanks for that. Thanks for engaging with me in this webinar. I hope you've made a list of three things that you can get done today. In case you haven't, I think if you just finished one or two, and if you haven't had time for the rest, because this is not a workshop, this is a webinar, you can continue your list after we are done. But the point that I want to make here is that look at what are the three most important things that you have to get done for that day, which will make that day a success for you. And once you've done that, if you finish, for example, your day starts, and if you finish those three things by noon or by 1 o'clock, then it's a good idea for you to make a list of the next three things. And once you finish that, go on to the next three things, and so on. Because even just looking at an extended list of 15 items could be tiresome and demoralizing, because you might look at that list and say, oh God, I have so many things to do. I can't even get started. Okay, so just to recap, start by eating that frog. Do the most difficult, dreaded things in the morning before you start your day, or as you start your day, and make a list of the three most critical things which will add value to the work that you're doing, and go about doing them. Next, I really like this woman, Oprah Winfrey, and she said a lot of things. Those of you who don't know her, she was a talk show host for many, many years, and that show became really popular. It was called the Oprah Winfrey Show. In fact, her name was Oprah, and later they changed it to Oprah. And the producers actually asked her to change her name to something else, like Jones or Jackie or something of that sort. I don't remember the exact name, but some very Western sounding name, because that would go well with the show. And thank God she didn't. Can you imagine Oprah Winfrey's show being called anything else? But this is one of the wonderful things that she said, among many other things. She says the way through the challenge is to get still and ask yourself, what is the next right move? What is the next right move? And then from that space, make the next right move and the next right move. So when I first heard this, I found this really insightful, because a lot of times, for example, on a typical day when I come to office, I do get calls from some of our participants, clients, sometimes our own team members, and so on. And almost always, when people are stuck, they're stuck because they don't know what's the next right move. And this is one of the ways in which you can take a lot of pressure off you and get clarity and move ahead. And that itself is a way for you to release pressure. Asking yourself, just what's the next right move? So let me just give you a few examples. For example, if you come to office, and you just meet your boss, and he gives you some big assignment to do, you might come back and sit in your cubicle and say, oh my God, I have so much to do, I have so much to finish. When you're feeling like that, one of the reasons why people feel overwhelmed, they look at this whole gambit of work and they say, I've got so much to do, and they end up not doing anything. They end up not starting. They end up just living under that pressure, looking at it, and not doing anything about it. When this happens, the only thing that help in is you help in mounting the pressure on yourself. Okay? Consider this. Next time you face such a situation, just ask yourself, I'm not worried about this huge, gigantic task. Forget it. I'm just thinking about to get this done, what is the next right thing for me to do? If the next right thing for me to do is pick up the phone and make a phone call to one person, leave the rest of the task aside. Just do that. If the next right thing is to sit down and make a list of three items, just do that. Okay. Now, if this is about a daily task, but also think about your life. Imagine something really large, like for example, you have to buy your own house. You have to move into. I mean, this is one thing which I face constantly, or at least I meet people who come and tell me this problem constantly, which is about how do I find a job that I love doing? How do I find the career of my dreams? How do I find my passion? Finding your passion could be a huge thing. Finding the job of your dreams could be a huge thing. But if you just start with one thing, what's the next right move? If my next right move is just go online, there's this test called strong interest inventory. Okay, you might have to pay some dollars. Go online, search for strong interest inventory, and do that test. It will tell you what could be some of your top interests in life, which will give you an idea of what could be a possible career for you. Not that it will solve the whole problem, but it's a good next right move. Okay, so likewise, if you want to build a house, do you have money in your account? Have you saved enough money to buy a property? Do you want to buy an apartment? Or even if you just decide, what do I want? Do I want to buy an apartment? Do I want to buy a villa? Do I want to just buy a plot of land and then think about construction later? Even deciding which out of these three do I want is the next right move. Okay, so that's a good way for you to take a lot of pressure off you, because by doing this you're just taking it one step at a time. I have some friends who are marathon runners, and I often ask them, what does it take to finish a marathon? How is it in the middle of a race? What does it feel like? Chetan, you have a question. Can you repeat the test, please? It's called SII, Strong Interest Inventory. Strong Interest Inventory. That's the name of the test. Okay. There are some companies which do it. I mean, I don't want to be on a Bodhih webinar endorsing other companies, but please search for it on Google. You'll never miss it. Okay. Okay. So I have asked my friends who are marathon runners, what does it take to finish a marathon? They've often said you can't start and finish a marathon just thinking about the end line or the finish line. You would, many runners do this. You reach a point where you're saying, just the next kilometer, just the next 100 meters, just the next 100 meters, just the next 100 meters. And finally, meters turn into, hectometers, kilometers, and finally you finish the race. That's really how what happens. Okay. Bhavesh Kumar. Oh yes, Bhavesh. How to cope with stress when one thinks they are not being treated fairly? Okay, I'm going to answer that, Bhavesh. That's an interesting question. I'm going to answer that. And Bhavesh, by the way, thanks for liking one of my tweets recently. I saw that you were one of the people who liked my tweets. Okay, thanks for thanks for that. Okay, so I'm going to answer Bhavesh's question. So I hope this clarifies the idea. Okay, let me move on to the next point. This is something which I found extremely interesting. Uh, this is many years ago. I did a workshop in a company which is an automotive company in Bangalore. I don't want to name them, but there was this one guy who he was helping me coordinate everything. Okay, and they called this guy Captain Cool. And by the way, that what I was doing in that company was a series of assessments. So there were behavioral assessment, there was an IQ test. This guy actually scored low in all of them. So by all standards, he was mediocre. Okay, but he was still called Captain Cool, and since he was he was from the HR team. He took me out for lunch every day, and he asked me, what work I do, how I got into this field, and so on. So I also asked him a few questions, and I told him that, look, he asked me, I've done not so great in all these assessments. So what does that mean? Does that mean I can't perform well? I said you are already performing well. People are calling you Captain Cool because you're so calm and composed and you're still getting your job done. Okay? And I said hard work is an independent competence by itself. So all the other things being same, between two people, if one person works harder than the other, the person who works harder will succeed. And in fact, even if one person's competence is less than the other, if this person who is lower on competence works harder, he's likely to succeed. So now, when I told him about this, he said, "You know what? It's not my hard work. What I really do is I stay over prepared." So he says, Sunday evenings, he finishes his Sunday by about 4 o'clock. He says, "My weekend is over at 4 on Sunday. After that, I just sit down and I plan my week. I decide all the things that I have to get done, and I plan to finish all those things by Tuesday." Okay. And invariably, new things will come up and all those things will happen, but I finish all those things, you know, by Tuesday. And I look at what meetings I have. I go over prepared for the meetings. I go over prepared for the week, and I go over prepared for each and every day in office. And I think this is a fantastic way for you to be more relaxed, calm, and composed. Because one of the dangers nowadays is that freshers come into office. They come into work expecting lenience, expecting comfort, expecting to just take it easy. And I think there's a great danger in this, because if they're told the opposite, if they're told that work is tough, you better work hard, meet your targets, there's no substitute for it, they would enter work with a different mindset. And I think there are a lot of people who walk into meetings. I mean, even recently I've met some people having a meeting and they're discovering the meeting during the meeting. They're discovering the purpose of the meeting during the meeting. And I think that's the opposite of preparedness. So my suggestion to you is be over prepared, and just imagine this, okay? Imagine you have to give a complex presentation to a very difficult audience. And I've seen this happen with a lot of people who are in this situation. The instant reaction is, oh my God, there's so much to do, there's a lot of stress. They're worried about the presentation, they're worried about, as they start preparing, as they get more details about the topic, as they do more research, as they equip themselves about what to talk about, get into the depth of certain things and know it better than anybody else, they start becoming more confident. As they start analyzing the audience and knowing what kind of audience, who's sitting in the room, what's their background, they start becoming more confident. And like this, with each step of preparation, confidence increases, comfort levels increase, and in fact, at one point, it will reach so high that it's not going to just be confidence, it's going to be excitement. You will be excited to go out there and do that presentation because you're so over prepared for it. So my suggestion next time, whether it's a meeting, whether it's a work day, whether it's a client call, just be over prepared. And being over prepared, first of all, takes a lot of load off your chest. And not only does it do that, it also keeps you excited about work. I'm sure you would all agree that on a day when you're not prepared to come to office and work and and do what you're supposed to do, you actually end up having a lousier day and feeling more stressed about work compared to a day when you know exactly what you're going to do, you're prepared for it, and you know you can do it well. Okay, and to be a little more philosophical about it, this is what happens when you're in a job of your dreams. Okay, so Bhavesh, one of the things that you can try is look at what's causing you stress. Okay, and if you feel that you're not being treated fairly, one suggestion that I have for you is bring it out. Okay, there's a person who I was coaching recently, and he said his boss always gave him some lousy feedback, made some sarcastic comments on him. And I mean, I don't know what is your nature of not being treated fairly, but this is an example which this is an idea which will work for everybody. So his boss kept doing this. So I told him, and what do you do? He said, I just keep quiet, and sometimes I laugh it off. And I said, next time you should just question it. So next time your boss says this is what you did was, what should I say, lousy, it's not a good quality. I said you should stand up and say, okay, I take that point. Could you tell me what about this was poor in quality and how can I improve it? and ask these questions. Not to put your boss in the spot, but what this does is it gets the other person to think before they tell you anything the next time. Imagine if you told me that, I don't like the way you speak. I'll say, okay, great. So what is it that you don't like about the way I speak? This forces you to think about something very specific in terms of feedback. And then if I ask you, okay, the way I'm speaking is not suiting you, what do you think I can do differently? This again forces you to think. And this mental difficulty of thinking about exactly what I'm trying to tell a person makes that person, think before they leap. Okay, so try this out, and you'll also hear some more things as we go ahead, Bhavesh. Ankit says there are organizations where supervisors work very unprofessionally and very unorganized way. Sometimes they don't give any work to subordinates, and when they give work, they're overburdened and they want to work. Okay, yes, that's and to be done instantly with short deadlines. See, I want to just share something with you. This is something which has worked with some people who have coached. One element of your work should be that you've got to have certain standards of your own, in the sense that setting some things like I just don't work on weekends. I don't work beyond 7 o'clock. Uh, I'd like to know at the start of the day what are the things that I need to get done. When you set these standards, you apart from having standards for yourself, you actually prepare people around you to meet those standards. For example, if you are my boss and I come and tell you in the morning, hi Ankit, I just want to share something with you because I'm just planning my day. These are the three things which I have on my list. Is there anything else you would like me to finish today? Now Ankit will say yes or no. And if he says no, I'll say, okay, great. So I'm going to just plan three more things because I have some more space. I'm going to finish these things. Okay, thanks, Ankit. And I'm going to move on. Later, post lunch, if you're going to come and tell me that, why don't you finish one more item or make these calls? If I can factor them in, I will. But otherwise, I'm going to tell them that, look, I can do this today, but tomorrow you better tell me in the morning because I plan my day in the morning. And that's what happens. Tomorrow, next week onwards, please tell me on Monday because I plan my week on Monday. Okay, so this is something which you can try. I think it's worked for a lot of people. Hmm. Okay, I did that questioning. He got upset, started pointing to all small things which didn't even account for. Okay, so Ankit, just hold on to that. I'm going to come and answer your question again. Let's move on to the next point. Write thoughts down. So here's one thing which from actual day-to-day items, things to do, techniques, we're moving into things which you can even do outside work, which will make work more enjoyable for you. All right, this is something which you can try out. Writing thoughts down at the end of every day. I want you to write down what's going through your head. There's a lot of there are a lot of thoughts in our head, and even before they're processed completely, new thoughts come. Even before they process, new thoughts come. I'm sure you've all had the experience of going and speaking to a friend or a relative or somebody or a coach and feeling a lot better after that. That experience is literally cathartic. So in the absence of that, one of the things that you could do is write down what's going through your head. And this is not about whether you write well, whether you write badly. No, this is just about bringing thoughts out and putting them down. So at the end of every day, write down what all happened during the day. Don't worry about, I'm not going to give you a prescription because there is no prescription. There's no hard and fast rule as to what you're supposed to write. Is it the things to do for the day, what happened? You can write your thoughts. You can write about your feelings. You can write about exactly what you did on the day, like a diary. You can write about somebody you met. You can write about what's on top of your mind. Whatever's in your mind and comes out is the right thing to come out. But the beauty of this is, what this does is it helps you declutter. It helps you bring a lot of the internal, mess out, and it clears your mind. And when you go to sleep like this, you have much better sleep. And when you wake up the next day, you're far more prepared for the day. I'm sure you would agree that work is far more pressurizing. If, say, you're having some problem at home, somebody's hospitalized, you're going through a divorce, uh, your kids have some problem, so you have some financial crisis, and with all this, you have to come to office and do your work right. And it puts a lot of pressure on you. If you can get all these things out of your head, Okay, and thank God, not all of us are faced with all these every single day. But if you can just come to office with a clear mind, that itself is like coming back after a holiday. So I want you to try that out. This is something which will certainly help. One more quick thought that I have for the person who said, I told my boss this, I brought this out, but it didn't really work. You should check this idea out called Robert Greene's Laws of Power. Okay, you can check it out. There's a book called Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power, and if that's the kind of boss that you have, you might want to use some of those techniques. In fact, the first law is never outshine the master. Probably why your boss got upset is because he felt you were outshining him or outwitting him by questioning him. He felt his authority was in question. So go through Robert Greene's Laws of Power. I don't frankly have the time to talk about that here, but it's a book you will find anywhere. You can search for it on YouTube. There are a lot of videos on Robert Greene's Laws of Power. It's a great way for you to exercise power over subordinates, peers, and superiors in interesting ways. Okay, in office. Okay, let's move on to the next. Meditate every day. Now, I don't know how many of you actually do this, but if you don't, I think you should do it. Some things to watch out for. First thing, it doesn't matter which path you follow. There are people who say, I follow path X, I follow path Y, I have to go for a 10-day course, only then I can do meditation. There's nothing like that. In fact, I think any of us can meditate. I mean, I've been following a path of meditation for almost 20 years now. It's one of the things which has transformed my life more than any course I did, more than any workshop I attended or book I read. And those of you who aren't following anything in particular, one basic, simple style you can follow. Okay, I'll give you one or two styles. You can don't have to necessarily follow this. You can follow anything. There are a bunch of courses out there which you can do. You can also pick up a book and read about meditation. But the important thing is to not just read the book and stop, but is to practice or put to practice what you read and understand. This is a very interesting Buddhist Tibetan meditation. All you have to do is you can try this out right now. Just focus on your breath. Okay. Now, when you do this, don't try to breathe deeper than usual. Don't try to breathe shallower than usual. Let it be your normal breath. Okay. You don't even have to close your eyes. You can close your eyes if you want to, but you don't have to close your eyes. Just focus on your breath. Realize that your breath is going in and out. It because you start focusing on it, it could naturally alter a bit. It's okay. It's bound to happen. So just if it alters a bit, if your breathing alters, just notice that it's altering and carry on. And just keep doing this and just keep focusing on your breath, focusing on your breath, focusing on your breath. This is a great way for you to feel relaxed, calm, composed, and you can do this ideally. Just do this for about 10 minutes in the morning at least. You can do it for as long as you like. Okay, there is great value in practicing anything, whether it's yoga, meditation, karate, tai chi, at a certain time every single day. So if you can fix a time for it, it's like feeling hungry at lunchtime. When you just get to that time, your body switches on the relaxation, calm, composed buttons. Okay, and that probably carries on for the rest of your day. So try to practice it at a fixed time every day, but if you don't, it doesn't matter. You can practice it at any time. You can practice it through work. Every time you feel that you're moving out of your center, just focus on your breath. Okay. uh, the other thing which you could do is is a very neutral, non-religious kind of, one more non-religious and content neutral kind of meditation, where you can just close your eyes and start counting backwards. Okay, and not like 100, 99, 98, 97, not fast, very slowly. Just say 100 in your mind, only in your mind, not aloud. Pause for a few seconds, move to 99, only in your head. Pause for a few seconds, and how you experience that number is completely up to you. Some of you might see an image of that number. Some of you might just hear the voice in your own head. Some of you might see it in bright digital or neon board. It doesn't matter how you experience that number, but just realize that you're paying attention to a number, saying it in your head, going to 99, then going to 98, then going to 97. So, Roser Martin, you're asking two questions. Let me answer the second one, which says it causes a lot of unwanted stress and unpleasant atmosphere at work. How to work with people who constantly engage in mudslinging, just stay in the limelight or seek attention. Okay, I'm going to answer that, Rosa. So, just to complete this, what would happen if you practice this meditation? You might, after some time, start daydreaming. So, for example, you might come to 96, and then suddenly you might think, oh, 96, I was in college, or, I was in school, and I had this friend. You might daydream for about 30 seconds, sometimes a minute, sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 45 minutes. It doesn't matter. When you come back from your daydream, you see if you can remember which is the last number which you stopped at. If you can remember it, continue it from there. If you can't remember the number, it doesn't matter, just come back to 100 and continue. This is not a race to reach 1 or 0. No. It's just about experiencing each number slowly and moving backwards. And you can do this for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20, 1 hour, up to you. Okay. So try these two things, because meditating is almost like putting the battery of a mobile phone off. It's like refreshing, it's like charging the battery and putting it on again. So that's really what it does. So, Rosa, to answer your question, when there's a lot of mudslinging and blaming and other things which happen in office, one of the things which I suggest, and this has worked quite often for a lot of people, have you seen movies? There are a lot of movies in which if you watched any horror movies, there are ghosts. One quality which I've noticed repeatedly of ghosts is that the ghost comes alive when the person in the movie, or the actors or the other characters in the movie, are getting scared. The ghost becomes more alive when people realize that the ghost is there, when its presence is being acknowledged. So my suggestion to you, if there's a lot of mudslinging, if there's a lot of blaming, if there's a lot of other things happening in office, don't give the ghost any importance, because by giving it importance and acknowledging it, you're bringing that ghost alive. Okay, so there are a lot of people who do this, and then they realize that it's not affecting you. Okay, there was this colleague who I used to work with in one of my previous companies. She would, after about a month after I joined, she would just not acknowledge me at all. I would say good morning, she would not even look at me, she would not say good morning. All right, and because this happened right in the morning, even later when she came and spoke to me, it was really under the pressure of necessity, when she really had to tell me something. So, but what happened was, I would still go talk to her. I would still say good morning. I would continue to say good morning to her every single day. Now she realized that this is just not affecting me. This has no power. And then she tried one or two more other things which also had no power. And what happened eventually is, she just carried on being a normal human being. She used to wish me in the morning, and she used to come and talk to me normally, and things were clear. So my suggestion is, don't give the ghost life, because that's something that you have control over. Okay, and this thing about creating an unpleasant atmosphere, I would tell you that even in a perfectly serene and happy atmosphere, there are people who are having a bad day. Maybe about 30-40% of it is about what's happening outside, but I think 50 to 60% of it is about what's happening with you. You can decide to have a great time, and you will also realize that when you start having a good time, not only does your mindset change, even people around you change. You will notice that that demon who's been harassing you at work actually quits and changes companies or changes departments. These things have happened quite a few times. Okay. Okay, Dominic, how to manage work bullies as they put pressure. Dominic, and both Dominic and Rosa, this is the other side of the story. Okay, I would, one thing is to be affected by it, and I'm saying that, to start with, don't be affected by it and focus on what you're supposed to do. Enjoy yourself at work, that's important. The second thing is also be ready to face up to that person. Okay, like I've noticed in a lot of companies, you're saying senior people bully you. Senior people do not bully everybody. They bully certain people, not everybody. And who are the people that they don't bully? They don't bully the people who stand up for themselves. So my suggestion is, next time this happens, just the discomfort of being questioned or asked, or even bringing the truth out into the open. Okay, sometimes this happens, when you can just go say it in a fun way. So Dominic, if you are the guy who was bullying me, and if I come and say, Dominic, it's 10 o'clock, it's time to start bullying me, come on. Now, what happens is I brought the truth out into the open. I've made this thing which you're doing every day commonplace. I've told him I've noticed it. I've told him that I'm not an idiot. I'm seeing what's happening. This itself puts that other person in bad light, and the other person stops doing it. One of the qualities of human beings is they don't like doing something which other people predicted that they would do. Okay, so try this out. I think it should work, and you can say it in as fun and casual way as you can. Sneha, how to cope up with overcommitment once you have already overmade commitments? So that's a tough call, Sneha. I mean, the first thing is, I think you should think before you commit, and I think it's important that you don't commit. But if you're not ready for it, but if you've already committed, the only way out is for you to practice some of these techniques, stay relaxed while getting your work done, and at least don't overcommit the next time around. All right, I think that's important. One of the things that you could do is bring this out and discuss it, saying that, I need some more time to finish this. So can we look at reworking the deadlines? Talk about this. I think even the rocket scientists who we have in the country, I don't want to name the company, even they keep reworking their deadlines. So I don't see how in a regular job you can't do this. But I have a suggestion to all of you, most of you who are asking questions. One of the things which I'm seeing is that your questions are stuck at a very, very micro level. This there's a lesson right there. I think it's important to move out of that into something larger. Okay, so time's running out. Let me move on to the next step. These are some of the reasons why I think you should meditate. It reduces anxiety, deeper levels of relaxation, drop in cholesterol levels, reduces stress, worry, BP. I like the last point, brings body, mind, and spirit in harmony. You will certainly experience this with a regular practice of meditation. You will realize that things which bothered you earlier are not problems anymore. So even those of you who are saying you've tried that, it's never worked out, I've seen a lot of people experience this. They're worried about something which they thought was crazy at work, unavoidable. It was the biggest problem and it kept them awake at night. They've started doing some of these practices, and then they realized, you'll come back and think about, what was I worried about? Can you imagine a time in school where you didn't finish your homework and you were genuinely worried? That worry was real. But I'm sure now, looking back, it seems like it was so futile. Not that anything has changed, but the reason it's futile is that you're functioning at a different level. And a lot of these practices gets you at that level where you will look back at yourself a week before, 1 month before, a few months before, and say, I can't believe I was rattled by these silly things. Okay, try out this. This is another thing which you should try, which is about being mindful. Well, there's a lot to be said about mindfulness. I mean, we really don't have time in this particular webinar to talk about it because we have about 6 minutes left. But I want to tell you a few things which you can practice. This this image actually explains the whole of mindfulness. A lot of things that we worry about, like for example, even those of you who are asking questions about being bullied, about your seniors, about people who are not conducive at work, and so on. This is not something which is happening right now. When you're in this webinar, nothing is bothering you. Okay, this is something which happened yesterday, or you fear it happening tomorrow. But the point is, right now you're sitting here worrying about it. Okay, that's what you're doing. My suggestion to you is, if you can focus on the goodness of what's happening right now, all right, that's something which takes away a lot of pressure of the past and future from you. Because a lot of pressure that we carry, a lot of work pressure which we carry and we find difficult to handle, is not pressure of the moment. It's the remnant of what happened in the past, and it's just the possibility of what could happen in the future. Right now, nothing's happening. Okay, one of the gurus in India said recently that we will keep you in our ashram for 1 week or 10 days, where there are or none of those people who were bothering you are there around you. You are just put through some nice, pleasant practices. But if you're still not having a nice time, and if you're not having a nice time when you're alone, that means you're in bad company. Okay, so I think it's something for you to think about, where if you are by yourself and in your mind you're worried about so many things which are not happening to you right now, it's time for you to evaluate that. Okay, and it's a good practice. Increasingly, companies around the world, systems around the world, are realizing the downsides of multitasking and doing many things together, doing things too fast and so on. There's great value in doing one thing at a time, focusing on what you're doing right now and experiencing that completely. So try this out. One of the ways to be mindful is to keep bringing your attention back. Like right now, I don't know if you're listening to this webinar and trying to send a mail or WhatsApp message or do something else. If you can just bring your complete attention back to this webinar and be here and listen to my voice, see this image, you will start realizing that you're experiencing this much, much more. And this richness in experience is what life is all about. And it will declutter, it will close all the blinds towards the past and the future, and it will help you be more in the present. And this itself will change the way you function later. Okay, try this out. It's a very powerful method. There's a lot that's said about it. You can read about it on the internet. And the last point that I want to make, uh, we did entire webinars on this some months back, and I can see here some of you have been part of those webinars. This is a wonderful quote by Oscar Wilde, who said, "Be yourself, everyone else is already taken." And there are some reasons why I'm mentioning this. One important thing is that there are uh, there are a lot of people at work, and one of the points that I've noticed in many companies, because I've spent most of my work life working in other people's companies or working in a hotel room, and by hotel room and I mean a hotel a hotel banquet hall. Okay, because I've been doing programs even in either in a banquet hall or in a meeting room or in a conference room of some company, so I constantly get exposed to people in that company and see them and see their working style and so on, and some things remain constant. One factor that causes a lot of pressure for people at work is that they are not themselves. What I mean by this is, just to give you a couple of examples, I know time's running out, but if you're not a people's person, if you don't like talking to others, if you don't like mingling with others, you like to just be by yourself. You like to just be by yourself and work, and that's when you're most effective. If that's the kind of person you are, and you're in a sales job, throughout the day you're forced to not be yourself. You're forced to talk to others, travel, meet new people, introduce yourself, introduce your product. This is not you. This is not who you are. And because of this, it puts pressure on yourself. Imagine you're a person who likes to be polite, courteous, and mild. That's your nature. That's how you are to your wife, your children, or your husband, your family members. Okay? But at work, you're a purchase manager. You're expected to be firm, strict, negotiate, assertive. And this is not who you are. So my suggestion to you is, one, tap into those points at work. Like I remember one guy who I was coaching, he said, evening at 6 o'clock when work gets over, I feel like, what a relief. When I walk out of office, I can just be myself. Okay. Not that my work is high pressure, no. But just being in the office is high pressure. Because I'm forced to be somebody else in the office because there's public eye. And God help you if there's also a CCTV camera in your office. Okay, so just being yourself takes a lot of pressure off you. And my suggestion is, look at those parts of your work where you can be more and more yourself. If there are people around you, get used to being yourself. Go drink water when you feel like, go take a coffee break when you feel like. When you start doing this, it puts you at ease. Okay. And if you can't do this in your job, I would strongly suggest look for another job. Look for a job that fits you. And I think it takes a lot of what should I say, it's quite difficult to find your passion and find the job of your dream, but it's worth venturing into, because when you do that, and I can speak from my own experience, though I was an engineer and worked as a design engineer, when I moved into training and development on in behavioral areas, which is what I really loved, I realized that it was far easier, and I don't see myself doing anything different on the weekend, which I do on the weekdays. Weekdays, I'm reading about human behavior and training people on it. Weekends, I'm reading about human behavior and sometimes training people, sometimes not training people, but at least discussing it. That's it. The lines between my time at work and out of work are very, very blur, sometimes non-existent. So look for something which you love doing, and then a lot of the other things will not affect you. Not only that, you'll be great at doing it because you love doing it so much. These are the things which you look forward to doing in the evenings and weekends. If you're doing that for a living, nothing will pressurize you. So, folks, on that note, let me wrap up this webinar. I am sorry I've taken a minute too much. I'm going to be here and for a couple of more minutes. So, if you have any questions, you can put them up on the screen. But I know some of you who blocked your time. These are the coordinates. One of somebody from the Bodhih team can just put the Bodhih website on the chat screen so that others can access it. Yeah, if you have any questions, you can tell me. Roser Martin, thanks so much. Thank you very much, Roser. I'm glad you found it useful. Ankit, I'm HR. I'm a HR lead. I love speaking, but when by the way, I'm not holding back anybody. The webinar is over. I'm going to take some questions for 2-3 minutes. So if you have other things to do, please carry on. Thank you very much for joining us. I enjoyed doing this webinar. I hope you enjoyed listening to it. Okay, I'm going to be here for a couple of minutes, just taking some more questions. So, Ankit, you're saying that you're speaking, but when I do so, then my subordinates take my instructions very lightly. When I speak less and avoid being informal with them, they work on time. Ankit, you should go through. This is actually one of the things. This is one of the laws of power by Robert Greene. You should go through it. You will find a lot of things useful in it. Okay, what you're saying is exactly a law of power. Okay. Shivatanu, hi Vinesh, your presentation is very clear and useful to me. I hope others may also feel the same. I'm leaving now. Really wanted to state at the last slide. Well, this is the last slide. Okay. Yeah, thanks Suhaib for putting that up. Thank you. A lot of takeaways. I don't know your name. Thanks Neha. Thanks for being here. Thanks Ankit. Thanks Simran. The points were useful. That's nice to know. Amina, thank you very much. Vandita, all the other people whose names I can't read, thanks for being here. Mithilesh, yes, thanks Mithilesh, I'm glad you found it useful. Thanks Veer Lakshmi, thank you very much for that. I hope I also wish myself a lot of success and I wish you a nice day too. Chetan, any good course on mindfulness? Well, one of them which we have in India is I don't want to mention the name Chetan here, but please look for it on Google. Search for Maharashtra mindfulness course. You will not miss it. It happens in Maharashtra. You can search for it. I'm not going to tell you the name of the course. Vinay, hi Vinesh. It was fantastic webinar. Had a great learning. Thanks for that. Divya, thank you Divya. Thanks for being here. All right, I think we've exhausted questions. So thank you very much, everybody. I hope you found this useful. Good luck to you. Have a nice rest of the week and weekend. I will see you on the next webinar. By the way, we have another webinar at, I think, 3 o'clock. So those of you who are available, are free, who would like to learn some things, then you can also be in that webinar. That webinar is about dealing with the different kinds of workforce we have, starting from the baby boomers to the Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Zers. and how to handle that. So if you want to learn about the different generations and what that means and how to deal with different people, you can be a part of that webinar. Thank you very much. I'm signing off. Yes, thanks, Suhaib. Thanks for putting that up. Those of you who are still around, that's the link to the next webinar about learning differences in the different generations.